He had the dream life, money, success, and the woman every man envied. But when pride took the driver's seat, everything he built began to crumble. This is the story of Harry Johnson, a man who lost love chasing glitter and found redemption where he least expected it. Welcome to African Tales and Hearts, where stories of love and destiny come alive. The siren had stopped wailing, but the sound still rang in Harry's head. He sat on the edge of a hospital bed, shirt torn, left wrist bandaged, a thin smell of disinfectant hanging in the air. His head throbbed. The mirror opposite him showed a man he barely recognized, blood crusted near his eyebrow, eyes red from more than pain. Outside, the corridor buzzed with nurses and stretchers, but around him everything felt quiet. Too quiet. The phone on the table kept flashing, screen cracked from the crash. He didn't reach for it. He already knew who wasn't calling. A nurse passed, glanced in, then hurried away. She had asked twice already if his wife was coming. He had said yes the first time. He didn't answer the second. Now he just stared at the door. He could still hear the music from the night before, bass shaking the club floor, laughter, champagne bubbles bursting against glass. He could see Jummy's red dress glimmering under the lights, her hand on the wheel as they sped down the Lecky road. He could hear her laugh, then the horn, then nothing but screeching tires. It had happened so fast. Now, here he was, alive and ashamed. He tried to breathe deeply, but his chest protested. He rubbed the bandage, stared at the ceiling, and thought, how did it come to this? His mind, uninvited, pulled him backward. Not to the crash, but to a different sound. The hum of a crowded community hall. The shuffle of plastic chairs. The sight of a slim young woman in a pressed NYSC uniform, her hand raised first when the coordinator asked for volunteers. Liz. He hadn't seen her in years, but her name still carried a calm he didn't deserve. She was the kind of woman who built her life like she built trust, one brick at a time. And he had left her waiting at a finished house while he chased flashing lights. A shout from the corridor broke his thoughts, someone arguing with a nurse. A stretcher squeaked past. The world outside his bed was still moving, unbothered by his disaster. He swallowed. It felt dry, like guilt had soaked up all the water in his throat. He pushed himself up, limped toward the small window. From the third floor, Lagos looked both busy and far away. BRT buses crawled, horns blared, and life refused to slow for anyone's heartbreak. He wondered if Liz was somewhere in that city, maybe in an office, maybe laughing again. He wished he could tell her sorry. Not in words, words were cheap, but in the kind of silence that admits you were wrong without needing her to say, I told you so. A door banged open down the hall. He turned slightly, then froze. For a moment he thought it was Jummy's voice. It wasn't. She hadn't come. She wouldn't come. He sank back onto the bed and let the truth sit heavy in his chest. The woman he'd chosen didn't care whether he lived or died. The woman he'd left behind had once prayed for him every night. His mother's words came back like echo, some blessings don't come twice, Harry. Don't waste them the first time. He had laughed back then. Now it didn't sound funny. He pressed his palms together and closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he prayed, not for money, or success, or fame, just for a second chance. When he opened them, sunlight was pushing through the blinds, slicing the room into pale stripes. A cleaner walked past, humming a gospel tune. Harry stared at the light and let his thoughts drift, back to the first time he met Liz. Back to when everything was simple, clean, and real. Before pride. Before temptation. Before he forgot what mattered. And that's where the story begins, years earlier, in Port Harcourt, when Harry Johnson still believed that hard work, honesty, and love would be enough to build a life. Years earlier, during his National Youth Service in Rivers State, Harry Johnson had been posted to a branch office of a small investment firm in Port Harcourt. He was 23 then, bright, ambitious, and restless. The kind of young man who believed that with hard work and the right connections, Lagos would one day know his name. He came from a modest family, a retired civil servant father and a schoolteacher mother who believed discipline and prayer could shape a man's future. Harry wanted more out of life, and he wasn't shy about it. But what he didn't know was that true ambition needs balance. And that balance would come in the quiet form of a woman named Elizabeth Osai. Liz had been posted from Edo State to serve in the same city. Her uniform was always neatly pressed, her step steady, her tone calm even when others complained about their posting. She worked as an account assistant at a beverage company, serious about her job and careful about her choices. Her parents had raised her with discipline and prayer, and she carried both like invisible armor. Harry first noticed her during one of those NYSC community meetings where most people arrived late. She sat near the front, listening attentively while others scrolled through their phones. When it was time for volunteers to help organize a financial literacy workshop, her hand went up first. Harry's went up next, partly because he wanted to help, mostly because he wanted to see her smile. From that day, their paths kept crossing. He was in charge of teaching small business owners about savings and investment. She handled the attendance sheets and refreshments. By the second week, people were already teasing them. The banker and the accountant looked like a future power couple. They both laughed it off, but neither denied it. Liz admired how confident he was when explaining market trends, and Harry liked how she made everything sound simple. After each session, they walked to the junction together, sometimes sharing snacks or roasted corn. It wasn't dramatic, it was gentle, and that was what made it beautiful. When service year ended, Liz moved back home to Benin City for a few months. She wasn't sure what came next, but Lagos always called to those who wanted more. When a beverage company offered her an account administrator role, she accepted. Her parents agreed on one condition: she would stay with her uncle and aunt on the mainland until she could stand fully on her own. Her uncle was a quiet man who believed young women should guard their reputation carefully. Her aunt was kind but firm about curfews, Sunday church attendance, and family values. Liz respected them both and adjusted easily to the household rhythm: early mornings, shared dinners, and phone calls home every Sunday evening. Harry lived across town in Surulere. His apartment was small but private, and he often joked that he had freedom but no proper food. Liz laughed at that and promised to visit whenever her uncle and aunt permitted. Those visits became the highlight of his week. She would cook, tidy up, and leave before dark. He never argued, he respected her boundaries. Instead, he learned to appreciate the discipline that shaped her. She was steady, not easily swayed by city pressure. Lagos could change people fast, but Liz remained herself, thoughtful, modest, focused on building her future without shortcuts. When Harry received his first big bonus at work, he wanted to buy a car. Liz suggested something different. She told him to invest instead, buy land, start small, build gradually. He thought about it, then agreed. It was the kind of advice only someone who truly cared would give. They found a plot in Bogota, quiet, affordable, nothing special. But Liz saw potential in it. She helped him inspect the place, asked smart questions about drainage and access roads. Harry watched her walk around with her small notepad and realized she wasn't just thinking about land, she was thinking about their future home. Weeks later, she introduced him to an architect named Nonso, her cousin's friend. Nonso drew up simple plans, and Harry asked for her opinion on every detail. Together they decided where the living room should face, how many rooms the house would have, and what kind of kitchen Liz would want. She smiled shyly when he said that. Those were the quiet promises that made both of them believe the future was certain. As months passed, Harry's career began to take off. He was quick with numbers, sharp with analysis, and good at reading people. His clients trusted him, his bosses noticed him. By 25, he was earning more than most of his peers. Liz was proud and determined to keep him grounded. She reminded him to save, to give, to stay humble. When he worked late, she visited on weekends, bringing home-cooked meals and warmth his apartment never seemed to have on its own. They were young, focused, and in love, but life rarely keeps things simple. Success has a way of changing people, and sometimes it starts so quietly you don't notice until you're halfway gone. Harry's weekends slowly filled up with client hangouts, networking dinners, and after-work drinks. He began meeting people who made him feel as if Lagos belonged to them. They talked big, spent big, and laughed at those who didn't. He started going out with them more often, promising Liz he'd be home early but always coming back late. She didn't complain at first. She believed in giving him space, but space can become distance if left unchecked. The more time he spent chasing connections, the less time he spent keeping the one that mattered most. Still, Liz stayed patient. She managed the building project, supervised workers, made payments when he was too busy to go. Sometimes she stood on the site in the afternoon heat, imagining what it would look like when it was finished, the paint, the furniture, the sound of children playing in the compound. She thought she was helping them build a shared dream. Harry, without realizing it, was already drifting toward another kind of dream, one dressed in lights, laughter, and temporary applause. The house rose slowly, block by block, while cracks in their relationship formed quietly beneath the surface. And just as the final coat of paint dried on the Brigada house, another kind of story began to unfold in Harry's life, one that would test everything he had built with Liz. It started with harmless after-work drinks. Harry told himself that networking was part of the job, and at first it was. Clients wanted to relax, celebrate wins, and share inside tips about the next big investment. The company picked up most of the bills, and success came with its own rhythm, late nights, loud laughter, and too many faces that called him brother when they barely knew his middle name. He began to dress differently. The simple shirts Liz once ironed for him were replaced by tailored suits and imported shoes. His phone never stopped buzzing. The Lagos weekend became a blur of new restaurants, rooftop lounges, and bars that promised exclusivity. His friends called it enjoyment. Liz called it change, though she never said it out loud. One Friday, while Harry and a few colleagues celebrated a major client win at a lounge in Lekki, life decided to shift its course. The air smelled of expensive perfume and grilled meat, and the lights painted everything gold. Across the room, a woman in a red dress stepped into the light. She moved with ease, confident, every turn of her head practiced yet natural. Harry noticed the curve of her smile before he noticed the people around her. It wasn't beauty alone, it was the way she carried herself, like the night belonged to her. One of his colleagues waved at a friend from her table. Before long the two groups had merged, laughter overlapping, drinks multiplying. The woman in red joined the circle. "Another round," one of the men shouted. "Make it two," she said, flashing a grin. She spoke about markets, music, and travel, switching topics as easily as she switched expressions. Her energy filled the gaps in every conversation. When the night ended, phones were exchanged with the casual promise of "let's keep in touch." The next week she sent a message thanking him for a fun evening. "Had a good time, Mr. Analyst," she wrote. Harry typed back, "Anytime, Miss Red Dress." That was how it began. A few texts became daily chats. Lunch invitations slipped into the middle of busy days. She called herself Jummy, short for Jumok, and worked at a microfinance bank. She was sharp, older by 2 years, and talked about Lagos like it was an opponent she had already beaten. She laughed loudly, drove fast, and spoke of life as if it were a game meant to be played at full speed. "Harry, you work too hard," she teased one afternoon. "When last did you breathe?" He smiled. "When my clients allow me. Then I'll teach you how to steal weekends back." Harry told himself she was just a friend, someone who helped him unwind after long days of figures and forecasts. But soon, the evenings he once spent talking to Liz were swallowed by new plans and new company. Their conversations slipped easily from business to life to jokes that only made sense after 2 drinks. Each meeting erased another boundary. By the end of the 3rd month, Jummy had become a habit. Liz felt it before she saw it. The calls that ended too quickly, the visits canceled at the last minute, the new cologne that didn't smell like him. She kept her calm, but her prayers grew longer. She visited the building site alone, took photos, and sent them to him with short messages he rarely answered. Each time she looked at the walls rising from the ground, she wondered if they were still building the same dream. When they finally met, Liz looked at him carefully. Harry, are you happy? She asked. He sighed. I'm fine, just busy. Busy can hide many things, she said quietly. 3 months after he met Jummy, she had become a regular part of his weekends. The woman who once told him to pace himself was now the one pulling him deeper into the fast lane. Liz felt it before she saw it. The calls that ended too quickly, the visits canceled at the last minute, the new cologne that didn't smell like him. She kept her calm, but her prayers grew longer. She visited the building site alone more often now, took photos, and sent them to him with short messages he rarely answered. The house was nearly complete, walls painted, windows installed, the kitchen tiles laid exactly as she had chosen. Each time she looked at the walls rising from the ground, she wondered if they were still building the same dream. One Saturday evening, she stood in what would have been their living room, watching the sunset through the new windows. Her phone buzzed. A message from Harry, can't make it today. Work thing. Sorry. It was the third cancellation that month. She didn't reply. She simply locked up the house, handed the keys to the site supervisor, and drove to Harry's apartment in Surrey. When she arrived, his car was parked outside. No work emergency. Just another lie. She knocked. He opened the door, surprised, guilt flashing across his face before he could hide it. Liz. I wasn't expecting. I know, she said quietly. You weren't expecting me. You haven't been expecting me for a while now. He stepped aside, let her in. The apartment smelled different. Perfume. Not hers. She turned to face him. Harry, are you happy? He sighed, rubbing his face. I'm fine, just busy. Busy can hide many things, she said, her voice steady but her eyes searching his. He looked away. Liz, please. Not tonight. Then when? She took a step closer. When will you tell me the truth? When the house is finished. When I've spent another year waiting for you to remember what we're building? I haven't forgotten. Yes, you have. Her voice cracked, just slightly. You've forgotten what we promised each other. You've forgotten why we started this. You've forgotten me. Harry opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no defense, and they both knew it. Liz took a breath, steadying herself. If something is wrong, tell me. If there's someone else, tell me. Don't let me keep building a future you're not planning to be part of. He looked at her then, really looked at her. At the woman who had believed in him when he was just a restless youth corps member with big dreams and no plan. The woman who had turned his bonus into a foundation instead of letting him waste it on a depreciating car. The woman who had supervised construction in the afternoon heat while he chased after-work drinks and hollow laughter. He should have told her the truth. He should have apologized. He should have chosen her. Instead, he said, Liz, you deserve someone who can give you more time. She stared at him, the words landing like stones. You're giving up that easily? It's not giving up. It's being realistic. My career is taking off. I'm meeting new people, traveling more. You deserve someone who can be present. I don't want someone else, Harry. I want you. The you I fell in love with. The one who used to walk me to the junction and buy roasted corn. The one who listened when I talked about building something real. People change, Liz. Yes, she said softly. They do. She looked around the apartment one last time, at the space she had filled with home-cooked meals and laughter, at the life she had tried to build with him. Then she picked up her bag. The house is almost done, she said, her voice calm now, resigned. I'll make sure the last payments go through. Consider it my final gift to you. Maybe one day you'll live in it with someone who appreciates what it took to build. Liz. Don't, she said, raising a hand. Don't say my name like it still means something to you. She walked to the door, paused with her hand on the handle. I prayed for you every night, Harry. I prayed you'd become the man you were meant to be. I still will. But I won't wait anymore. She opened the door and stepped into the night. Harry stood frozen, listening to her footsteps fade down the corridor, the sound of the gate closing, her car engine starting, then silence. He walked to the window and watched her taillights disappear into Lagos traffic. His phone buzzed. A message from Jummy, "Party in Lekki tonight. You coming?" He stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed back, "Yeah. I'm coming." When Liz's aunt found her later that night, she was still sitting by the window in her uncle's house, staring at nothing, her phone dark and silent on her lap. "My dear, are you all right?" her aunt asked gently. Liz nodded slowly. "I will be, Auntie. I will be." But the tears that finally came said otherwise. A week later, Jummy arrived at Harry's apartment with a small suitcase. "Just till I sort out my rent issue," she said. Harry hesitated, then moved her bag aside to make space in the wardrobe. By the following weekend, 2 more bags appeared. The apartment changed smell, color, and sound. The fridge filled with imported wine, the wardrobe with bright fabrics. Her laughter replaced the quiet that Liz had left behind. 3 months after she moved in, Jummy suggested meeting his parents. "They should know who keeps you smiling," she said, brushing his shoulder. Harry hesitated. "My mom, she's traditional. Then she'll love me. I'm charm in human form." His parents came down from Port Harcourt for a Sunday lunch. Jummy greeted them warmly, her nails painted a soft coral that caught the light each time she gestured. "Welcome, sir, ma," she said brightly. "I made coconut rice and peppered fish." His mother smiled politely. "Thank you, my dear." His father asked about her work, and she talked easily. When they left, his mother only said, "She's lively." Harry knew what that tone meant. A week later, Jummy's mother invited him to dinner. Mrs. Adeniran arrived at her own table dressed in shimmering lace and gold jewelry. "So this is the young man stealing my daughter's time," she said, laughing. Harry chuckled. "I'm only borrowing it, Ma." "Borrow all you want, but bring bride price soon," she teased. By the 6th month of their relationship, Jummy wanted things official. "Let's not waste time," she told him. "Registry, simple, elegant. We sign and start our life." Harry nodded slowly. "My parents would prefer church." "We'll give them grandchildren, they'll forgive us," she replied with a wink. The wedding took place on a bright Thursday afternoon at the registry. The hall smelled of polish and paper, the ceiling fans clicking above the small crowd. Harry's parents stood on one side, stiff and silent. His mother's hands were folded tightly in her lap, her lips pressed into a thin line. She hadn't said much since they arrived, but her eyes said everything. Jummy's mother, draped in gold lace, beamed and waved at friends. She had invited half her social circle. Harry had invited almost no one. When the registrar asked if he took Jumok Adeniran as his lawfully wedded wife, Harry heard himself say, "I do." But somewhere in the back of his mind, a small voice whispered, "What are you doing?" He pushed it down. Outside, photographers arranged them under a mango tree for pictures. "Smile small now, husband," Jummy whispered, adjusting her dress for the camera. Harry obeyed. He was good at that now, obeying the moment, ignoring the feeling. That evening they hosted dinner at an upscale restaurant. Champagne glasses clinked, and friends toasted. To the Johnsons, someone shouted. To forever. Jummy replied, raising her glass. Days blurred into weeks. Harry mentioned the Bagata house one evening while they were packing. "The house is ready," he said. "Just needs a few finishing touches. We could move in next month." Jummy looked up from her phone, frowning. "Bagata?" "Yeah. The house I've been building. Remember? I told you about it." She wrinkled her nose. "Babe, Bagata is fine. But we're not fine people. You're a senior analyst now. I'm about to be promoted to branch manager. We need to live somewhere that matches who we are. The house is solid. Good neighborhood. Quiet." "Exactly," she said, standing. "Quiet. Nobody will see us there. What's the point of success if people don't know you've arrived? Harry hesitated. It's already paid for. Then rent it out. Let it make money for us. She walked over, placed her hands on his shoulders, and smiled. Babe, trust me. Ikoyi is where we belong. Glass walls, lagoon view, the kind of place people talk about. That's our level now. Harry thought about the house, the one Liz had helped him plan, the one they had built together brick by brick. He thought about letting strangers live in it. But Jummy was already scrolling through listings on her phone, her excitement filling the room. Look at this one, she said, turning the screen toward him. $3 million a year, but it's worth it. This is us. He looked at the photo, sleek, modern, expensive. Empty. Okay, he said quietly. Let's go see it. She kissed his cheek. That's my husband. Always thinking ahead. But as she walked away, Harry felt something tighten in his chest. He wasn't thinking ahead. He was leaving something behind. They moved into the serviced flat in Ikoyi the following month. The glass windows overlooked the lagoon, and the rent could have built 2 more houses in Brigada. Jummy loved it. She walked barefoot on the marble floor, trailing her fingers along the imported furniture. This is how we should live, she said. Lagos should know who we are. Harry stood by the window, champagne glass in hand, staring at the city lights. The flat was full of expensive things, but it felt empty. There was no smell of home-cooked stew, no quiet evenings reading side by side, no one asking him how his day really went. Jummy emerged from the bedroom an hour later, phone still in hand, laughing at comments on her post. Babe, look, 200 likes already, she said, showing him the screen. He glanced at the photo, both of them smiling, glasses raised, the caption reading #LivingOurBestLife. He wondered if she believed it. He wondered if he did. Their life unfolded like a commercial, business trips, rooftop dinners, luxury perfumes on hotel pillows. Jummy planned parties that filled their weekends. She invited influencers, bankers, people who posted everything and remembered nothing. At one such party, Harry stood on the balcony, nursing a drink, watching Jummy work the room. She moved from group to group, laughing loudly, touching arms, posing for photos. She was magnetic. Everyone wanted to be near her. A colleague joined him on the balcony. Guy, you don marry well. That your wife, she sabi enjoy life. Harry smiled. Yeah. She does. USEF, you don hammer. This kind life, now everybody dream am. Harry nodded, said nothing. Inside, the music was too loud. The laughter felt rehearsed. He looked at Jummy again. She was taking a selfie with 3 women he'd never met. He thought about Liz. She would have hated this. She would have been in the kitchen, helping to pack up food, asking the caterers if they needed anything. She would have noticed if he was standing alone. Jummy didn't notice. She was busy being seen. Later that night, after everyone left, she kicked off her heels and collapsed on the sofa. That was amazing, she said, scrolling through photos. We need to do this every month. Harry looked at her. Do you ever get tired? She glanced up. Tired of what? Of performing. She frowned. What's that supposed to mean? He shook his head. Nothing. Forget it. She returned to her phone, already forgetting. His parents visited once. They sat stiffly on the cream-colored sofa, complimenting the view, avoiding mention of the registry ceremony. Jummy served them cocktails in crystal glasses. Mummy, you'll like this, non-alcoholic, she said kindly. His mother tasted it, smiled faintly, and placed the glass back on the tray. When they left, Jummy sighed. They don't like me. They just need time, Harry said. She shrugged. Then they'd better hurry. Months passed. The walls of the apartment carried less conversation and more music. Work consumed Harry. Jummy filled her days with fittings, brunches, and photo shoots with friends. Yet every picture of them together showed perfect teeth and designer labels. Their first anniversary arrived with noise and sparkle. Jummy's friends organized a trip to Dubai. "Let's make memories," she said, holding up matching tickets. In Dubai, they smiled for pictures beside the ocean. Harry watched her pose, her laughter loud against the waves, and said quietly, "You look happy." "Of course I am," she replied. "Look at this life." When they returned, Jummy's mother began to whisper again. "A child will complete your home," she told her daughter. Jummy repeated the words to Harry that night. "Babe, it's time," she said softly. "We need a baby." He nodded. "When it happens, it happens." "No," she said, "when we make it happen." The second year became a cycle of appointments, doctors, vitamins, hopeful calendars pinned to the fridge. At first there was laughter, then silence. "Harry, it's been months," Jummy said one evening. "These things take time." "How much time?" she snapped. "Other women try once." He turned away. "Can we not fight tonight?" By the third year, strain had settled in like dust that refused to leave. They spoke in half sentences. Meals were quiet. Jummy's perfume no longer filled the room, her absence did. One night, after another party, rain started before they reached the car park. "Let me drive," she said, grabbing the keys. "You've had wine," he warned. "Please, Harry." "I'm fine." The streets glistened under the streetlights. She laughed at something on her phone, missed a curve, and the world spun. Metal met metal. Glass shattered. Horns blared. Then silence. When Harry opened his eyes, the smell of smoke and rain filled his lungs. Jummy stood outside the car, her dress streaked with mud, staring at the dented bonnet. He groaned. "My arm." She rushed to him. "You'll be fine, I swear it's not that bad." Flashing lights arrived. Voices shouted. Someone called an ambulance. Jummy kept saying it wasn't her fault, that the road was slippery. Harry said nothing. In the ambulance, sirens screamed through the night. He looked at her beside him, unharmed, restless, scrolling through her phone, and something inside him went still. The city rolled by in blurs of red and white light. Somewhere inside that noise, the man who once believed he was living the dream finally began to wake up. Rain drummed softly on the roof of the emergency wing. 2 days after the crash, Harry sat upright in bed, left arm bandaged, ribs sore each time he breathed. Nurses moved briskly around him, the smell of antiseptic sharp but clean. Jummy walked in carrying a food flask and a small smile. "Morning," she said, setting the tray on the side table. "Pepper soup, rice, and fruit. You should eat before it gets cold." He nodded. "You didn't have to come this early." "I did not cook," she said lightly. "The cook did and packed it. You know she insists on feeding half the ward if I let her." He managed a small laugh that turned into a wince. "Don't tell her that joke again, she might actually try." "You're lucky to have people fuss over you," Jummy replied, straightening the sheet. "I told everyone at the office you're fine. They send greetings." A driver arrived later with the evening meal, egusi, soft pounded yam, neatly wrapped. Jummy followed behind in a cloud of perfume and exhaustion. She stayed for an hour, talking mostly about work, about clients and promotions waiting once the audit closed. Harry listened, grateful she was unharmed. When she left that night, he watched the rain through the window and whispered a quiet thank you. He didn't feel lucky, but he felt alive. 2 days later he was discharged. The doctor advised rest, light work, no stress. On the ride home, Jummy handled every call that came through his phone. "Harry will be back soon," she told his boss. "You know him, he can't sit still." The apartment smelled of freshly mopped floors and dinner simmering somewhere behind closed doors. A uniformed maid appeared briefly, lowering her head in greeting before disappearing again. Harry lowered himself onto the sofa and exhaled. The city glittered through the glass walls, it all looked the same, yet nothing felt familiar. He reached for the bowl of soup Jummy placed before him. You should rest too, he said. She waved him off. Tomorrow's payroll. I'll finish some reports then sleep. Her heels clicked away down the corridor, the sound swallowed by the hum of the air conditioner. He returned to work the next week but could not find his old rhythm. His eyes tracked numbers slowly, mistakes slipped through his fingers. A colleague clapped him on the shoulder. Still shaken, eh? Give it time. He nodded, smiling thinly. Time was all anyone prescribed, but time felt heavier now. At night he dreamed of screeching tires, of lights spinning out of order. Some mornings he woke before dawn and simply sat watching the city come alive. The accident hadn't taken much from him physically, but it had stripped away the illusion of control. He told Jummy one morning, "I keep thinking how close we came." She poured coffee, half listening. "You think too much. We're fine. Let's just move on." He looked at her and saw how easily she'd already done that. 3 weeks after the accident, Harry's doctor called him back for a follow-up. Routine, they said. Just to make sure everything was healing properly. Jummy didn't come to that appointment. She had a branch meeting. The doctor was a middle-aged man with kind eyes and careful words. He reviewed the charts, asked questions about pain levels, then paused. "Mr. Johnson, there's something we need to discuss." Harry sat up straighter. "Is something wrong?" The impact from the accident caused some internal trauma. Specifically, there was significant damage to the pelvic region. "We've run comprehensive tests, and I'm afraid the results show that your fertility has been severely compromised." The words hung in the air like smoke. "Compromised," Harry repeated slowly. "You mean?" "Conceiving naturally will be extremely difficult, most likely impossible. There are treatments, procedures we can explore, but I want you to understand that the prognosis is not favorable." The damage was quite extensive. Harry stared at the wall, the doctor's voice fading into background noise. He thought about Jummy Smothers' words. "A child will complete your home." He thought about the calendars on the fridge, the vitamins, the hopeful planning. "Does my wife know?" he asked quietly. "Not yet. I wanted to speak with you first. But you should tell her soon. These things are better discussed together, with counseling support if needed." Harry nodded, though he wasn't sure he heard anything after that. When he got home, Jummy was on the balcony, on a video call with friends, laughing about something. He stood in the doorway, watching her for a moment, then cleared his throat. She glanced back. "Hold on, girls." She muted the call. "You're back. How did it go?" "We need to talk." She frowned, sensing the tone. "What's wrong?" He told her. Slowly, carefully, watching her face change with every sentence. When he finished, she was silent for a long time. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes went cold. Then she laughed. Once. Sharp and bitter. "So that's it," she said. "After everything, this is what I get?" The doctor said there are options. Treatments. It's not completely impossible. Not completely impossible, she repeated, standing. Do you hear yourself? Do you know how pathetic that sounds? Jummy, please. Please what? Her voice rose, sharp and cutting. Please pretend this doesn't change everything? Please act like I didn't just find out I married a man who can't even give me children? Harry felt the words like a slap. This isn't something I chose. The accident. The accident that happened because you insisted we go to that stupid party. The accident that happened because you were too drunk to drive yourself. You were the one driving, he said quietly. You grabbed the keys. I told you not to. Don't you dare. She stepped closer, her finger jabbing toward him. Don't you dare try to blame me for your inadequacy. The doctors confirmed it, Harry. You're the one who's broken. Not me. You. The word hung in the air like poison. I'm not broken, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm injured. There's a difference. Not to me, there isn't. She grabbed her purse, her hands shaking with rage. I need to go to my mother's. I can't even look at you right now. Jummy, wait. She stopped at the door, turned back. Her face was twisted with disgust. You know what the worst part is? I wasted 3 years on you. 3 years I could have spent with a real man. Someone whole. Someone who could actually give me what I deserve. The door slammed. The apartment fell into crushing silence. Harry sank onto the sofa, her words echoing in his head. Broken. Inadequate. Not a real man. He thought about the crash. About Jummy laughing at her phone, swerving, the world spinning. About how she'd walked away without a scratch while his body bore the damage. And now she was calling him broken. Jummy stayed at her mother's for a week. When she returned, something had shifted. She was colder, more distant, but also more cruel. She began making comments. Small ones at first. Don't wait up for me tonight. I'm having dinner with people who actually have energy. My friend's husband just bought her a new car. Must be nice to have a man who can still perform. Harry tried to ignore it, tried to focus on work, but the depression was already settling in like fog. 2 weeks later, they attended a colleague's birthday party. Harry didn't want to go, but Jummy insisted. We can't let people think something's wrong, she said, applying lipstick in the mirror. At the party, Harry stood by the bar, nursing a drink, watching Jummy work the room. She was animated, laughing, touching arms. At one point, she was in a circle of women, and their laughter grew louder. One of the women glanced at Harry, then quickly looked away, whispering something. The group erupted in laughter again. Harry's stomach turned. He knew. Somehow, he knew. Later, in the car ride home, he confronted her. Did you tell them? Tell them what? She said, scrolling through her phone. About the diagnosis. About me. She didn't even look up. They're my friends. I needed someone to talk to. So you told them I'm impotent? I told them the truth. She finally looked at him, her eyes cold. That my husband can't give me children. That I'm trapped in a marriage with a man who's only half functional. Harry gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. You had no right. I have every right. This is my life too, Harry. Or did you forget that when you decided to ruin it? He said nothing. There was nothing left to say. A month later, Harry came home early from work. His boss had sent him home again, concerned about his performance. When he opened the apartment door, he heard voices. Laughter. A man's voice. He walked into the living room and froze. Jummy was on the sofa, sitting close to a man Harry had seen before, Deli, a real estate developer who sometimes attended their parties. Too close. Her hand on his arm. His hand on her knee. They both looked up, startled. Harry, Jummy said, standing quickly. You're home early. Apparently. Harry looked at Deli, who had the decency to look uncomfortable. What's going on? Deli was just helping me look at some property listings, Jummy said smoothly. For investment. In our living room. With your hand on his knee. Deli stood. Man, I should go. Yeah, Harry said, his voice flat. You should. Deli grabbed his jacket and left quickly, muttering apologies. When the door closed, Jummy turned to Harry, defiant. Don't start, she said. How long? How long what? How long have you been sleeping with him? She laughed, cold and sharp. Does it matter? Yes. It matters. She walked to the window, arms crossed. Since before the accident, if you must know. Maybe even before that. I don't keep track. The words hit like bullets. You've been cheating on me for over a year? Don't act so shocked, Harry. What did you expect? You think I was going to stay faithful to a man who can't even satisfy me? Who can't give me children? Who sits around the house depressing everyone with his sad face? I'm depressed because my wife treats me like I'm worthless. You are worthless, she screamed, spinning around. You're a broken, useless man who ruined my life. Deli treats me like a woman. He makes me feel alive. He can actually do something. Harry stared at her, something inside him finally breaking. Then go to him, he said quietly. Go to Deli. Be with someone who makes you feel alive. Oh, I will, she said, grabbing her purse. Trust me, I will. She walked out, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. Harry stood in the empty apartment, surrounded by expensive furniture and hollow silence, and finally let himself cry. After that night, Harry stopped pretending. He stopped going to work. He stopped answering calls. He stopped caring. His boss called, concerned. His parents called, worried. He told them all the same thing, I'm fine. Just need time. But he wasn't fine. He was drowning. Jummy moved out completely 2 weeks later. She didn't ask for permission, didn't explain. She just came with Deli and 2 moving men and took her things. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce, she said on her way out. Harry nodded. Okay. She paused at the door, looked back at him sitting on the sofa, unshaven, hollow-eyed. You did this to yourself, you know, she said. If you'd been a real man, none of this would have happened. Then she was gone. The 4th year arrived like a season no one asked for. Harry's company let him go quietly. Extended leave they called it, but everyone knew what it meant. His accounts dwindled. The Ikoyi rent came due, and he couldn't pay it. He packed his things, what little remained after Jummy took half, and drove to Gbagada. The house stood quiet, waiting. Dust covered the floors, weeds grew through the fence line. But the bones were good. The foundation was solid. He stood in the living room, the one Liz had planned, the one they dreamed about together, and for the first time in months, he felt something other than despair. He felt regret. Deep, aching regret. I'm sorry, Liz, he whispered to the empty room. I'm so sorry. He spent the following months clearing debris, hiring masons, painting, repairing what time had stolen. He sold his car to pay for materials. The money went into cement, tiles, doors, and a simple gate. Each nail, each brushstroke steadied his hands and mind. Neighbors began to notice the quiet man who came every morning in rolled-up sleeves, directing workers, paying them promptly, leaving before evening traffic. When the house was finally livable, he moved in. The furniture from Ikoyi looked out of place at first, too grand for the modest space. But slowly, the house became home. But new furniture for the master suite as part of his new beginning. His phone stayed mostly silent. A few friends checked in, most had drifted away after the scandal of losing his job and status. He didn't blame them. Lagos had little patience for men who stumbled. But in that new silence, Harry began to find something close to peace. He cooked his own meals, watered the small garden Liz once planned on paper, and slept without noise. Sometimes, on Sunday mornings, he drove to church early, sitting at the back long after Mass ended. The pastor's words weren't new, but they sounded different now. One evening his mother called from Port Harcourt. "My son, are you all right?" "I'm getting there, Ma," he said. "We heard about the divorce. It's final." A pause. Then, softly, "When you were a boy, you built things even from broken toys. Do the same with your life." He smiled faintly. "Yes, Ma." After the call he sat outside watching dusk settle over the neighborhood. A light breeze carried the smell of rain. For the first time in years, he didn't dread tomorrow. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, Harry saw the photos on social media. Jummy and Deli, dressed in matching aso-ebi, smiling at a registry. The caption read, "New beginnings with my king." Hashtag blessed and highly favored. Hashtag second chances at love. The wedding made headlines and business pages, banking executive weds real estate mogul and intimate ceremony. Harry stared at the photos for a long time. She looked happy. Triumphant, even. He closed the browser and went back to painting the guest room. 6 months after her remarriage, the first whispers started circulating. A mutual friend mentioned it casually. "Did you hear that? Jummy and her new husband are fighting?" Harry said nothing, but the friend continued anyway. "They say the man has a temper. One time, neighbor heard shouting for night. Another time, she came to work with sunglasses, even though she was inside the office." Harry's jaw tightened. "That's her business now." "True, true. But you know Lagos. People talk." A year passed. Harry's life had found a rhythm, simple, disciplined, purposeful. He started managing private accounts again, working from a small office in Yaba. His reputation slowly rebuilt itself. Clients appreciated his honesty, his discretion. Money began to flow again, but his life stayed modest. He worked from 9 to 5, closed the books by 6, and drove himself home through evening traffic, humming to old gospel songs. One afternoon, while reviewing reports at a cafe near the marina, he heard a familiar laugh behind him. Harry Johnson. He turned. Liz stood there, poised in a navy blue dress, her hair tied back neatly. He smiled, his heart suddenly loud in his chest. "Liz. You look exactly as I remember." "That's impossible," she replied with a small grin. "Time leaves fingerprints on everyone." They talked briefly about work, about Port Harcourt, about nothing at all. When she left, she slid a business card across the table. "Call me if you ever need a consultant," she said. "Finance law's still my lane." He turned the card over several times before slipping it into his wallet. Weeks later he called, strictly for advice, or so he told himself. She agreed to meet, though her tone stayed professional. They met at a quiet restaurant, discussed licensing issues for his firm, and parted politely. But that evening he sent a message. "Thank you, Liz. You still make complicated things sound simple." Her reply came an hour later. "I'm glad you're doing well. Don't read meaning into old memories." He didn't argue, but he didn't stop calling either. Over the next few months, their paths crossed again, seminars, business events, mutual friends gatherings. Each time she kept her distance, polite but cool. "You don't trust me yet," he said once after walking her to her car. "No, I don't," she answered. "I'm still studying who you are now." He accepted that. He had spent years demanding immediate results, now he learned patience the hard way. Meanwhile, Lagos never stopped whispering. News reached Harry through old circles. Jummy's marriage was unraveling. Delhi's business had collapsed after a failed development deal. The luxury lifestyle evaporated. They moved from their Banana Island flat to a modest apartment on the mainland. The parties stopped. The Instagram posts became less frequent, then stopped altogether. One evening, a former colleague mentioned seeing her at a government hospital. She looked thin, hairy. Like person, a defeated person. And she wore a scarf, but I saw a small bruise on her jaw. Her husband is unfaithful to her. Harry felt no satisfaction, only sadness. "I hope she finds peace." "You too good, Shaw. After what she did to you." Harry shrugged. "Bitterness is a prison. I've been in enough of those." A year later, another whisper reached him, this one from Jummy's former colleague at the bank. "You know that Jummy and Deli have been trying for baby since they got married?" Harry looked up. "What?" "Yes, they've gone to different hospitals. Turns out she's got a problem. Her womb has fibroids, serious one. The doctor says it will be hard for her to conceive. Her husband has impregnated one of his side chicks." The irony settled like lead. Jummy had scorned him, called him broken, blamed him for something she herself could never do. She had destroyed their marriage, humiliated him publicly, all while carrying her own inability to conceive. And now, in a new marriage, that truth had been revealed. Harry closed his eyes and whispered a prayer, not for revenge, but for mercy. For her. For himself. For all of them. By the second year of running his own firm, Harry's reputation had climbed again, this time without the fast-paced lifestyle. Clients appreciated his discretion, his honesty. He earned more now than he ever had at the old company, yet his life remained simple: morning devotion, steady work, early dinners, laughter with his parents over weekend calls. Liz began to see that change. She met him one evening after a seminar. They walked to the parking lot together. "You've mellowed," she said. He smiled. "Age and mercy will do that to a man." "Maybe," she replied. "But not everyone learns." He stopped, searching her face. "Would it matter if I said I care for you?" She met his gaze calmly. "It would matter if you showed it without words." So he did, consistency replacing promises, respect replacing regret. Months later, after nearly a year of cautious friendship, Liz visited his Bogota house for the first time. She stepped into the living room, running her fingers along the smooth wall. "You finished it," she said softly. "With my own hands, this time," he answered. She smiled, though her eyes glistened. "It's beautiful." "Still missing something," he murmured. "Maybe it's heart." She looked at him for a long moment before changing the subject. "Dinner's getting cold." It took many more months, shared projects, quiet Sundays, trust rebuilt brick by brick, before she allowed herself to say yes again. When Harry finally approached her father in Benin City, he came with humility, not pride. Her father studied him for a long time before speaking. "My daughter has already been hurt once by you," her father said. "What makes you different now?" Harry met his eyes. "Sir, I'm not different because I promised to be. I'm different because I've already failed once, and I know what it cost me." Her father nodded slowly. "Then don't waste this second chance." The traditional wedding came first, a proper ceremony in Benin City, with her family surrounding them in celebration. Liz wore coral beads and lace, and Harry's parents wept with gratitude. The church wedding followed weeks later, small and intimate, surrounded only by those who had prayed them through the storm. That night, as they sat together in the Bogota house, their house now, Liz said, "I never thought we'd circle back here." Harry reached for her hand. "Maybe some circles are worth finishing." 6 months later, Liz placed her hand over her stomach and whispered, "Harry." He looked up from his laptop, confused. "The doctor confirmed it," she said, smiling through tears. For a moment he couldn't speak. Then he crossed the room, lifted her carefully, and whispered against her hair, "Thank you, God, thank you." Months passed. Their home filled with light again, the smell of Sunday stew, the sound of laughter, the rhythm of prayers said together before bed. Harry often stood by the window at night watching Liz read, one hand resting on her growing belly, the other turning pages slowly. One afternoon, as they left a medical appointment, traffic slowed near a busy shopping plaza. Liz suggested they stop to pick up baby clothes. He parked near the entrance and helped her out of the car. The air smelled of roasted corn and rain on hot pavement. They were halfway to the store when a voice called softly, "Harry." He turned. Jummy stood a few steps away, slim, well-dressed, but with a shadow behind her eyes. The sunlight caught a fading bruise near her jaw that makeup hadn't quite hidden. For a long moment none of them spoke. Finally Harry said quietly, "Jummy, this is my wife, Liz." Liz smiled politely. "It's nice to meet you." Jummy nodded, her eyes flicking between them, lingering on Liz's rounded belly. "Congratulations," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you," Liz said warmly. Jummy's jaw tightened. She looked at Harry. "I heard you were doing well." "I'm blessed," he said simply. She glanced again at Liz's belly, and something cracked in her expression. I wanted to say." She stopped, swallowed. "I'm sorry. For everything. For how I treated you. For what I said." Harry studied her for a moment, the woman who had called him broken, who had humiliated him, who had blamed him for something that was never his fault. He felt no anger. Only pity. "I forgive you, Jummy," he said gently. "I hope you find peace." Her eyes filled with tears. She nodded quickly, unable to speak, then turned and walked away, her reflection swallowed by passing cars and afternoon sunlight. That evening, Harry sat in the garden with Liz, watching the sunset scatter gold across the city. "She looked so sad," Liz said softly. "She is," Harry replied. "She chased everything that glittered and lost everything that mattered." Liz rested her head on his shoulder. "Hard years teach strong peace." He smiled. "And second chances teach grace." The wind carried the scent of rain again, the same smell from that night years ago, only gentler now. Harry closed his eyes, breathed in, and thanked God for roads that still led home. In a city that never slows down, some lessons arrive only after the noise fades. Some doors close not to punish us, but to point us home. And some people pay the price for their cruelty in ways they never expected. This is the story of Harry Johnson, proof that losing everything can sometimes lead you back to what truly matters. And this is the story of Jummy, a reminder that the scorn we pour on others often returns to us tenfold. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to African Tales and Hearts, where every story reminds us that love, faith, and second chances are never out of reach. Thank you for listening.